Welcome to today's Explainer. We're unraveling a deeply tragic and incredibly complex timeline today. It's a story that spans continents, from the vibrant, bustling streets of Delhi all the way to the quiet neighborhoods of the UK. We're looking at a case that exposes the dark realities that can sometimes hide right behind the facade of a perfect marriage. Our focus? The Harshita Brella case. We'll be breaking down the facts, the investigation, and the ongoing search for justice, using details straight from our source material. So let's jump right in.
Imagine a family just absolutely filled with hope and joy, sending their youngest daughter off to start a brand new life abroad. I mean, every parent dreams of seeing their child well settled and happy, right? But as we explore the facts of this case, we're going to see how those very dreams turned into an absolute nightmare. The daughter they happily bid farewell to in a bridal dress was saying her final goodbye. This quote really sets the emotional stakes for everything we're about to discuss. A young woman departed in her beautiful red bridal attire, completely unaware that it was literally her final goodbye to her family.
Which brings us to Section 1, the dream wedding. This was that initial period where hope, expectations, and family dreams were at their absolute peak.
To really grasp the gravity of this loss, we have to understand exactly who Harshita was. She was just 23 years old, living in Delhi, and by all accounts, she was a kind, innocent, and incredibly vibrant young woman. She had this one singular driving passion from childhood. She wanted to be a teacher, and she worked so hard for it. She got her Bachelor of Arts with honors from Delhi University, and then her Bachelor of Education. She even started tutoring kids, and parents just raved about her dedication. So when a marriage proposal came through a close relative for a guy named Pankaj Lamba, a man supposedly well-settled in London, her family was over the moon. They really believed London would give her endless opportunities to chase those teaching dreams.
The couple followed a pretty standard route for NRI, or non-resident Indian marriages. Step 1. In August 2023, Pankaj took a few days off, flew to India, and they had a court marriage basically just to kickstart the whole visa process. Step 2, he heads right back to London. Step 3, on March 22, 2024, they hold this grand traditional Hindi wedding in Delhi. Her dad, who works as a driver, proudly went all out and celebrated with great pomp. And finally, Step 4. By April 2024, Harshita's visa arrives and she moves to join Pankaj in Corby in the UK. She even lands a job at a distribution center, financially supporting Pankaj while also keeping the house running. Honestly, it seemed like the perfect start.
But that illusion was incredibly fragile. Moving on to Section 2, the bitter truth of London. The facade that Pankaj had presented completely fell apart.
The sheer scale of the deception here is massive. The expectation, the whole reason this marriage happened, was that Pankaj was this well-settled NRI working at a highly reputed company in London. But the reality? He was actually just in the UK on a student visa, working as a pizza delivery boy. When Harshita found out, she and her family were understandably shocked. But feeling like she didn't really have any other option at that point, she tried her best to ignore the lies and just focus on her own career and her new life.
Sadly, the lies were really just the tip of the iceberg. Almost immediately after the wedding, this deception rapidly escalated into severe domestic abuse. Pankaj subjected Harshita to constant physical and emotional torture. He started demanding dowry, physically beating her to extort money. And it didn't stop there. He took total control over all her bank accounts, forced her to work overtime at her job just to bring in more cash, and simultaneously isolated her completely. She wasn't allowed to meet friends or colleagues. She was essentially trapped in this endless cycle of work and abuse in a totally foreign country.
As things steadily got worse, we hit a crucial turning point. Section 3, abuse and the police.
The breaking point finally came on August 29, 2024. Following a brutal attack, Harshita actually tried to run away from the house, but he chased her down, caught her, and assaulted her all over again. Having absolutely had enough, she called her dad in India in tears. He sensibly told her to contact a colleague and get out of there immediately, and she did. She managed to escape to her colleague's place, and that very evening, she filed a formal domestic violence complaint with the police. Tragically, we also have to mention that the prolonged physical and emotional trauma had already taken an unimaginable toll. Harshita, who was pregnant at the time, suffered a miscarriage due to the abuse.
When the police heard her account, the physical abuse, the financial control, the forced labor, they acted fast. On September 3, they arrested Pankaj. Now, even though he got bail a couple of days later, the police issued a DVPO. That's a domestic violence protection order. Essentially, it's a strict legal order that totally bans the perpetrator from contacting the victim or even returning to their shared home for a set period. And that brings us to the number 28.
This DVPO was valid for exactly 28 days. The police took her case incredibly seriously. During this 28-day window, they moved Harshita to a safe house and assigned 2 dedicated detectives to check in on her regularly. Harshita even told her family she was never ever going back to Pankaj because he would kill her. Her family literally begged her to return to India, but legally she had to stay in the UK until the case was closed.
Now we have to look at the devastating psychological grip of abuse in Section 4, A Fatal Mistake, where we see the tragic cycle that traps so many victims.
Pankaj basically weaponized the system's timeline. Step 1, that 28-day DVPO expires and he pays his fine. Step 2, knowing he can't just walk up and talk to her, he uses a mutual relative to get Harshita on a conference call. Step 3, on that call, he just relentlessly begs, threatens, and manipulates her. And Step 4, worn down and coerced, Harshita makes a fatal decision. She withdraws her police complaint. Once the charges were dropped, Pankaj wormed his way right back into her life, convincing her they could start fresh. He even managed to extract more money from her, claiming his arrest made it too hard to find a job.
This false reconciliation leads us directly to November 10, 2024. Pankaj invites Harshita out for a walk near the Corby boating lake. Believing he had actually changed his ways after his brief time in jail, she felt this renewed sense of hope. Later that day, she made a video call to her family back in India. She happily told them Pankaj was coming over for dinner and she was making food for him. The heartbreaking irony here, her family had absolutely no idea this would be the very last time they'd ever see her alive.
Which brings us to the grim sequence of events right after she vanished. Section 5, Murder and Investigation. The timeline here is just rapid and completely chilling. According to forensics, Harshita was murdered on November 10th, right between 7 and 8 p.m. The very next day, November 11th, Pankaj flees the UK. By the 13th, having not heard from her, her frantic father files a missing person report. Because of those prior domestic violence reports, police immediately suspect Pankaj. They use license plate recognition to track his silver Vauxhall Corsa, and on November 14th, they find the car parked in Ilford. Inside the boot of that car, they made the horrific discovery of Harshita's body. The next day, a postmortem confirmed she had been strangled.
So how exactly did the prime suspect just vanish? Well, CCTV pieced together his highly calculated escape. On November 10th, around 9 p.m., so shortly after the murder, cameras catch him looking visibly nervous, pretending to wait for someone. The next morning, November 11th, he's on camera again walking down Jaffe Road in Ilford, carrying a black bag and heading straight for an underground station. That was the last visual UK police had of him. By the time they ID'd him, he had already used his Indian passport to flee the country. For authorities, this strongly indicated the entire crime was completely premeditated.
Let's shift our focus back to India for Section 6, the wait for justice, where an international manhunt continues.
The moment UK authorities tipped off India via Interpol, Harshita's father filed formal complaints in Delhi. He revealed that Pankaj's parents were heavily involved in instigating those dowry demands, actually forcing Harshita's family to sell off property just to pay them. Taking this super seriously, Delhi police arrested Pankaj's parents, remanding them on serious charges including dowry death, cruelty, and criminal breach of trust.
But the main culprit? He's still out there. To track him down, the Delhi police declared Pankaj a wanted criminal, put up posters, and placed a specific bounty on his head, a 50,000 rupee reward for any information leading to his arrest.
Despite all these international alerts, the manhunt has turned up some seriously chilling clues showing he might be hiding right under their noses. Police suspect he arrived in Delhi on November 12th. On March 4th, CCTV cameras actually caught Pankaj casually withdrawing cash from an ATM right in Delhi. Then, on March 22nd, his mobile phone was recovered from a local rickshaw puller. Think about that. A man wanted for a brutal, premeditated murder in the UK is roaming freely and fearlessly in Delhi, successfully evading capture. As you can imagine, this lack of progress has left the family exhausted and terrified. They're constantly in and out of courts, terrified that Pankaj might target them next. Harshita's older sister Sonia expressed her deep frustration, saying, "They are not doing their job very well. That's why I just want the case transferred to the CBI." They are desperately hoping that India's Central Bureau of Investigation, a higher federal authority, can step in and finally bring this fugitive in.
And that brings us to the end of today's explainer, leaving us with a really heavy, provocative question. In a system where millions of cases are already pending and a known killer is caught on camera roaming the streets, what's going to happen to Harshita Brella? Will her tragic story, the story of a vibrant young teacher whose life was stolen by deception, just become another dusty file in a cabinet? Or will the ongoing pressure finally force the hand of justice? That's what we really need to reflect on today. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this case. Keep asking questions and keep seeking the truth.
Yeah.